Welcome to the Iconic Podcast. I'm your host, Jen Spiegel, and I am so delighted to share with you a beautiful human who is doing beautiful work. Chelsea Jambo is here, the owner, founder of OURbody, and I could not be more delighted to be sitting with you today and learning about your mission, your purpose, and how you're making a difference every single day. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Jen, so much for having me here.
I'm excited to hear your story. So, I feel like one of the greatest ways for people to understand us and connect with us is to kind of go back to the origin story. So,
Mhm.
before our body,
Yeah.
what was Chelsea like?
Yeah, Chelsea was I would say a 20-year-old trying to rebound off of a deterred path. So, all my life, I was always been that girl that I always knew I was going to be. I had a plan, undergrad in political science, law degree, lawyer. That was like my vision growing up.
Oh,
So I was
wow.
always that person that I'm like, okay, this is where I'm going to be. I need to go X, Y, and Z to get there. And then COVID happened, deferred from law school, and I kind of found myself in, I would say, a controlled free fall.
Mm.
It was more of a sense where I was like, okay, what am I doing now? Feeling a little bit lost, but also gaining skills from, working in corporate and trying to navigate being in your 20s and being young and trying to find my way back on that path. And then ultimately I ended up ditching that path and now I'm here. Founding my own bodies, founding, oh my goodness, our body and where we are today, which is completely different from where I've ever envisioned myself from. Like, if we were to rewind like 5 years ago, I would not have imagined being here.
Isn't it fascinating how we can sort of have this path that we feel we're going to take and we go down these paths and suddenly we realize like it was all meant to be. We were
Mhm.
supposed to take this path, but it wasn't necessarily the destination we anticipated. It kind of veered off to this
Yeah.
other direction because law school and now founding OURbody, that is, I would say, dramatically different of a destination.
Yeah, it's honestly night and day. Like, I look back at my life and sometimes I'm just like, how did we get here? Because it even last year, last year I was working on this, but to fully imagine myself going all in on my business, being a full-time founder, full-time devoting myself to this business was not even in my vision, even in my peripheral vision. So to be here, it's like, oh my goodness, like we're just doing it and it's a ride.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
So, OURbody, this concept and the sort of I would say the butterflies in the tummy
Mhm.
came from a health experience. And I think that's really important to share because there's many people out there right now who are either feeling that they need to advocate more for themselves or they're
Mhm.
not feeling heard when it comes to their health, especially women's health, where I feel like this is being spoken about more. I'm so
Mhm.
grateful for the conversations happening, but we have so far to go still. So, would you share the story of how this really all sparked?
Yeah, it truly sparked, I'd say, around 2 years ago, and then really kicked into gear last year. So the whole purpose and origin story behind it was we have a family history of breast cancer in my family. My grandma unfortunately passed away from it
Mm,
last year after fighting
mm,
years with cancer. And before she passed away, my mom found a lump in her breast. It ended up becoming benign, but in that moment, for a couple of
yes.
months, we had no idea. And what went from being like, oh, it might not be genetic, went from, oh, okay, like this is could be genetic, like time to take it a little more
Right,
seriously.
right.
And I've always been that person that I would rather know. In my friend group, I'm always the person like, yep, test me, let me know. I'd rather walk, through life knowing my chances rather than lying through
Right.
life.
Yeah.
So I went to the doctors and I was like, here's my family history. I am this close to like chopping off my boobs and just saying, you know what, I'm not gonna like, I'm not gonna deal with it. But before I do that, I would love to get some answers to figure out if it's genetic and to kind of figure out my risks of it. And I was 24 at the time, and the doctor looked at me. He's like, "You're 24? Yep. You don't have." He's like, "You don't have breast cancer." And I said, "Well, in this moment, I would hope not.
Right.
But I want to know my risks because I know I'm not in the age range to have breast cancer right now, but you never know with life." And I
Mhm.
think just going off of stereotypes and just, oh, like this is the average range is kind of reckless in a sense for me. So I was
Mhm.
like, you know what, let me get some tests done to figure it out. And I was in this doctor's appointment going back and forth with the doctor, arguing, like negotiating, begging, pleading, like we're going back and forth. And I was like, can we do something? Just testing anything so I can get
Right.
some answers before I decide to go like, on the extreme.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, no, like he kept saying, no, you're too young. You're 24. You don't have cancer. And I was like, okay, but can we figure it out? And, the last thing that he said to me, and I'll always remember this saying, is, I'm not putting my name on it. And that was his, like, essentially his reasoning behind why he wasn't willing to, sign off on me getting genetic testing. He just didn't feel like it was worth him putting his name on it. And in that moment, I'm like walking out on the verge of so many emotions. It was like tears, anger, like confusion all at
Right, right.
once. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, I'm going to have to wait until I'm in that age range where cancer is going to be so much higher
Mm-hmm.
risk to my life to actually figure out if I'm going to have it. And I was like, that's just not okay with me. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I'm not okay with not knowing. I'm not okay with walking through life being like, oh, I could have it. And so in that moment, I was like, okay, if I can't get a doctor to sign off and get answers via, the standard way and the medical way, I'm going to take an assessment of my life. I'm going to look at myself and say, okay, let's presume that we're going to have cancer down our lives and breast cancer is going to come knocking at our door. How can I better put myself in a position where I'm at least stronger as an individual and as a person to handle that moment? So I started doing an inventory. I was like, okay, I need to eat better. I need to watch what I'm putting in my body. I need to focus more on taking care of my body, building muscle mass. And, that was one thing I saw with my grandma. Like, she lost so much weight because of the muscle mass. So I was like, okay, I need to be stronger because chemo and everything takes a lot in your body.
Yes.
So going through that life. And then, while I'm going through this list, I stumbled on my period because I have debilitating period pain. I'm throwing up.
Oh,
I'm caught up in a
wow.
ball. And, I'm always popping Tylenol and Advil every like prescribed hour. So like 4 hour mark, 6 hour mark, I'm popping Tylenol pills. And I kind of had that epiphany. I was like, okay, one, having this much like Tylenol and medicine in our system for like once
Yeah.
once a month for a week straight is not good. Probably not good for me down the line, especially if I'm trying to better myself for the chance of getting cancer.
Right.
So I was like, hey, so I took that off.
Mm.
And making that decision, I was like, okay, if I'm going to take, pain medication off the equation, I need something because I cannot handle the pain. So I
Wow.
started looking into natural medicine. So I take chamomile tea typically, but
Mm.
sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't because, the female body fluctuates and it's different every month. So, I started having these conversations with so many women. They're like, oh, there's raspberry leaf tea, there's chamomile, and just had this epiphany one day of, why aren't we combining all these herbs? Like, we all kind of have a consensus that herbs are natural and organic, and we essentially know what they're going to do to us, and
Mm-hmm.
there's no essentially side effects towards herbs.
Right.
So I started, doing my own research, and I landed on a rough formulation to the Celeste tea, which is the menstrual support tea. And then once I had that kind of in mind, I went to, my supplier, which had a special team of herbalists and naturopaths in their own company. And I was like, here's my idea. I want to make sure that it actually works. 'Cause that's a big thing for me. Because I think there's so much in this world where it's like, oh yeah, take this if you're feeling that, take this if you're feeling that. And you take it and you're like, this is like,
Yeah,
it doesn't
it
work on
doesn't
me.
do what they promise, right?
Yeah. So my big thing, I was like, here's a rough idea. I want it to work. And so how we formulated them were they're symptom based. So you can take one, like, one phase of the hormone cycle. We all know the symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's herbs that are purposely put in the teas to target each individual symptom. So
Wow.
if you have cramps, then, you have a herb that tackles your cramps. If you're more as a person who bloats, then the bloating ingredients are going to help you. So it's one formulation that allows fluidity for each female body because we all experience these hormonal phases differently. So it's fluid within, each female body. And I think that's the one thing I'm so happy to have because I've heard so many different stories of people saying, oh yeah, this worked for, my cramps went down, my bloating went down. Oh, I have thyroids and it helped my thyroids. And I was like, this is amazing that it's one product that has so many different, purposes and reviews and so many women who like tried and say it actually helped me.
Right. And so it's what's fascinating to me and just something worth kind of almost rewinding and going back to
Mm-hmm.
is the fact that first of all, I'm sorry for the loss of your grandma.
Yeah, thank you.
That would have been difficult, especially after so many years. I imagine,
Yeah.
that was quite a journey for her and a journey for those who loved her. But I find, the typical saying, not the typical saying, but the common saying of taking your pain and turning it into purpose. This
Mm-hmm.
is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
Something that was painful for you ignited you into finding something that would be supportive to yourself and to others. I'm curious though around the doctor. I want to go back to that for a second because do you feel now being in this world and supporting so many women, is that a common reaction for doctors or do you feel like that was your like just your
No.
experience?
Unfortunately, I feel like it's common.
Do you?
I've told this story to so many women. They're like, yeah, I've had similar experiences with doctors where
Mhm.
essentially I hate that women have to do this, but a lot of the stories I've been hearing is to actually get a doctor to take you seriously, you have to over exaggerate. You
Yeah.
have to like essentially be more extreme than what you're actually feeling because, you're either going to be slapped with a no, like me, or and I hate this saying of, oh yeah, it's just your hormones. You're fine. Just don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And you're the one sitting here being like, okay, it's just my hormones. Okay, it's hormone related. What about my hormones? Right?
Right.
I think it's unfortunately a lot of women are given a brush off reaction
Mhm.
to something that if doctors or the healthcare industry just took a few more seconds to ask a follow-up question or to dive deeper into a little bit more and actually educate women, um, we hopefully will not like there wouldn't be that many women who had the same similar experience as me, and that's just a heartbreaking thing to
Right.
keep telling people. They're like, "Yep, I've gone through the exact
We've
same
had
thing.
that too.
I'm going through the same thing," and it's unfortunate.
Now, I'm so curious. I'm a curious
Mhm.
creature. I wonder too, do you think doctors are equipped to have these conversations? Like, is the education there? Is this, are they being naive? Or is it just sort of a style? Like this is where my brain goes. Is
Mhm.
it the fact that you don't really understand women's hormones, so the brushing off is more of a protection mode of yourself because you're not
Mhm.
entirely sure how to answer this question? Or is it that perpetuating scenario of, oh, women are so hormonal, like that kind of attitude? What do you think? Or could it be a combination?
I would say a combination,
Mm,
because I've had conversations with doctors and I've had a combination with female doctors who specialize within the hormone cycle and natural patch and whatnot.
mm,
And what I found is with, and I don't know, because I'm like knocking on wood, hopefully it's taught within medical school, but I think, the hormone cycle itself and just hormones themselves, they're very complex.
mhm.
So I think it's a combination between some doctor just getting that surface level education and not taking the time to go deeper and understanding the hormones,
Mhm.
but also a perpetuation of like society is very, very used to just saying, oh, it's the hormones. And it really is about changing that narrative because a lot of people have, this bias around how women portray and how women act. And a
Mhm.
lot of it is hormonal based. Oh, she's crazy. Oh, there's this. So I think sometimes that does come in when, doctors they see a patient and they think it's hormone related and they're like, ah,
Yeah.
just your hormones. You're
Yeah.
just a woman. You're fine. And I think it, you have to find a doctor who actually cares enough
Mhm.
to, go beyond just it's your hormones. And I think doctors are equipped to dive deeper if they want to.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah. And I feel too that it's just their natural reaction too is to give us the birth control pill.
Hmm.
You have acne. Oh, that's hormones. Take the
Yeah.
pill. Oh, you've got cramps or you're irregular. Take the birth control pill. Like it's just this remedy that is leaned on. And what I'm so just excited to learn through you is we can do this in a natural way. We
Yeah.
don't have to necessarily lean on the birth control
Yeah.
pill to solve or give a solution to so many of our symptoms. So, kind of like coming back forward to our body
Mm-hmm.
and the proprietary blends that you're building, what I loved was that you said the ingredients in just one of those bags, one of those teas have multiple ingredients to be able to help with multiple symptoms.
Hmm.
So, me drinking that cup of tea, maybe that day I feel bloated,
Hmm.
but don't have cramps, I would still feel relief. Is
Yeah.
that so? Is that what you're saying with
Yeah.
your formulations?
Yeah. It's, yeah. So it's all each individual herbs has its own individual property.
Good.
So, having those blends that have individual properties, one, they're formulated in a way where it's safe to consume because you kind of enter this little danger zone of mixing different herbs. But it's something where when you combine the different herbs, like even like taking herbs on their own is no harm to you.
Right.
So if you're not feeling bloated that day, the bloating ingredient is not going to help you. But
Right.
if you are feeling bloated the other day, it is. So it's a fluid formulation that, allows the different experiences for women and, everyone to actually feel supported.
Mhm.
Because that's also another thing, you can create a tea or a product that focuses on something specific, but if you don't understand the basics, which is the female body is very different.
Mhm.
It's very complex and it's also individualized.
Right.
So if you can't create a product that's able to be individual, but also general, then
Mm.
that's kind of how you kind of have so many people being like, oh, yeah, that didn't work for me. And I was like, no, I want it to work for you because I want so many women to feel supported and feel like they have a natural option toward the body, regardless of what phase you're at, regardless of your symptoms. I don't want the question of, oh, well, yeah, I heard that only works for cramps and I don't have cramps, so I'm not going to
Right.
take it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I love when you say fluidity. I
Mhm.
think that's even feminine in itself.
Yeah.
Like that's attractive to me as a woman because I think of myself and how I am and I'm fluid,
Mhm.
and even how I wake up is not necessarily the same mood or state when I go to bed, right?
Mhm.
We are just these incredible humans. I think women are
Yeah.
so amazing. And the fact that we have this side to us that is emotional and hormonal and that we can tap into all of these different energies is our superpower if we
Mhm.
allow it to be. So thank you for building a product that, really supports that. I'd love to dive into the building of the business if you don't
Mhm.
mind,
Yeah.
because I know that people listening in, first of all, I know there's many who are going to appreciate your product and we'll come back to that. But I also know there's a lot of founders listening in and thinking, wow, I've thought of doing something like this, but I don't even know where to start. What did you do first? Like you had this idea. You said you went to a manufacturer, like where, or a lab. What was the first thing? I mean, rather than me answer for you, what was the first thing that you did?
Yeah, I think the first thing was actually personally testing to see if this is something that I wanted to go down.
Okay.
At least educating myself because I don't have a herbal degree. I don't have a naturopathic degree.
Right.
So for me, I was like, okay, I'm going to create a product. I at least want to be able to talk about what I want in a way where, you know, if I'm working with specialists, they understand me in a way that they know,
Right.
but also in a way where everyday people, if I say, hey, this is what we're building, they also understand me. So for myself was a lot of education,
Okay.
a lot of understanding the hormonal cycle because that's the goal we're trying to attack. It's the hormonal cycle. So self-educating myself within that. And
Mhm.
then once I kind of had a clear idea of how exactly I wanted the teas to function, it was a long trek to find a supplier because I had a lot of requirements. I think this was something where I was the most pickiest about
Okay.
was finding the supplier. I wanted a Canadian-based supplier.
Mhm.
Um,
Why is that?
just because it's this peace of mind of like, okay, like you're in Canada. I know your facility has a lot of restrictions because Canada has a lot of
Yes, it
guidelines
does.
and regulations. So I was like, okay, I know the Canadian like legal system and regulational system. So if you're functioning in Canada, that means your warehouse is, to Canadian standards, but also that ability to say, okay, like we're founded in Canada. Like
Mhm.
there's something powerful about saying not only we're a Canadian business, and not only is it a Canadian founder, but we're made in Canada. So
Yeah.
that trifecta. And so that was a big thing. And then also finding a supplier that has traceability. So all of our ingredients are traceable. And that was something just because I like knowing. I'm like a knowledge like nerd. I love to know where things are coming from. It doesn't change anything, but I can easily search up, where is, our hibiscus coming from? Where is
Mm.
our raspberry leaf coming from? And I know a country. Will that really change how I, perceive the tea or perceive the formulation?
Right.
No, but just having that additional information was just good for me because if a supplier can provide me that information, then I'm like, okay, you're kind of trustworthy. You're okay with sharing the information because you
Mhm.
understand it's more of a peace of mind. And then the cherry on top was just having the specialist because I don't have that specialist, degree and background. I was like,
Right.
I want to work with specialists. I want to work with a team that specializes and isn't just a supplier or manufacturer because I think you can easily find a supplier and manufacturer for
Yeah.
herbs,
Yeah.
but having the ability to, work with the team to be to change the formulation. If they're looking at what I present and they're like, okay, Chelsea, we need to change this, we need to change that. We can tweak this
Mhm.
based on their own knowledge and experience and background, and then we can supply it at the same time, was amazing. That experience itself was, eye opening. I was like, okay, I feel so much more confident about the tea, and then also those tasting, like those who buy the tea can also have that peace of mind of it's not just me cooking up the tea
Right.
like
Yeah, you're not
in my
making it in your
kitchen.
kitchen.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
just me doing like a quick Google search or
Yeah.
whatnot. It's
Yeah.
actually, having those who are educated and have bigger, better insights behind it to formulate it. So it was like a partnership. I wanted not just a supplier, but a partner in building these teas.
Beautiful.
And then after that, it was like, okay, we have a product. Now how do we start a business
Yeah.
now that we have a product, which I think was the biggest thing. And then going from there, just,
Well, can I pause you before you go too? Because
yeah,
I have
sorry.
so many. No, it's not sorry. I have so many questions around this. So, again, I feel, and we talked about this before we hit record in the
Mhm.
podcast, how I feel like in the online space and online founders are pretty spoiled rotten, if I can say so. And
Yeah.
they may not like hearing this, but I do believe an online founder, especially in a service based business, can really start with not a lot of investment, without a lot of skin in the game. Maybe a lot of mind space and desire
Mhm.
and goals and vision. But from a financial point of view, there's not a lot that they have to do to spark their business. Whereas a product based business, and I have one myself, a product based business, there's a lot of sweat equity attached to also heavy investments
Mhm.
because you've got to create these blends, create this product before you even know how many people are going to buy.
Yeah.
So even in the initial stages of working with these specialists and really building the blends, were you bootstrapping and self-funded? Did you have someone investing in you? I'm so curious around those, like just how that was for you at the beginning.
Yeah, I was bootstrapping it all. It
Wow.
was, I would honestly say the most nerve-wracking thing. I've honestly, so many times I've had the thought of, is this actually going to work? And I
Mm,
had to put that aside because that fear when you're bootstrapping it, but also having a product-based business that's not even launched yet,
yes.
most nerve-wracking experience or time in the business where you're like, this could easily fail. Nobody could buy.
Right.
Nobody can feel into it. So, that's where I really leaned into our mission and our goal. And that's kind of what drove me throughout
Mm.
the fear of it could fail. And I spent all this money and it could fail. And I was like, nope, we're pushing that aside because we have one simple mission, which is to support women throughout their hormonal cycle because who else is supporting us?
Good for you. Good for you because it is so easy to talk ourselves out of great ideas and especially easy to use money and investment as a very valid excuse when, sometimes it's really stretchy and
Mhm.
it's putting things forward before there's any evidence that it's even going to work. So that's just so fascinating to me because I hear belief and I hear really great mindset and leadership when you tell me that story because it's not that you didn't have those thoughts. It's
Mhm.
just that you didn't live in those thoughts. You
Mhm.
pushed them aside and went through because you're like, this vision is worth bringing to life. So I
Yeah.
applaud you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So then you have these blends. You're bootstrapping, you're excited, but then there's packaging. There's a website build.
Yeah.
There's all the back end systems that are required for a product based business. So, were you, again, like in this moment, what was coming up for you as you were planning like the packaging and things like that? Were you just full steam ahead, excited, or were there wobbly moments?
It was full steam ahead, and there were some wobbly moments, especially around the packaging. I
Was there?
think, yeah, oh my goodness, around the packaging. So I am a very creative person. I grew up creative and having
Mm,
creative outlets. And, when I was creating this packaging, I wanted it to have a meaning rather than just aesthetically pleasing, because that's also a big thing for me. I was like, I wanted to be clean, aesthetically pleasing, but
right.
also have a meaning towards it.
Mm,
So I had this lovely friend of mine who designed the packaging, and he's incredibly talented. And he's like, I'll design them for you. So, he was able to take my creative chaos and he's like, Chelsea, you need to focus. And I'm like, okay, I will pick one thing because I had 10,000 ideas in my mind. And he's like, narrow it down. So once we got it narrowed down, and the story was, I wanted each tea, when you put them side to side or in a row, to share a story, which is
mm,
the hormonal cycle. So you have Celeste, which is the deep, dark burgundy,
mm.
and then you have Balance at the end, which is this light pink. And the story is that with all four teas, they all get lighter from dark red to light pink. And the goal is with the hormonal cycle, we all start with our periods. So we're
Right.
like,
We're deep.
we're deep in the
We're
red.
deep in it.
We're deep in the red. So, but as we transition as women, we get, we stop bleeding, right? Or slow down the bleeding, and then eventually we stop.
Right.
So, I wanted that like visual representation to say, okay, we're deep in the red and we're slowly phasing into maturity and not bleeding, and then you have balance. So that was the whole visual story, and the colors really match because I'm also like I got very nitpicky between the colors and the complementary colors. And, me and my graphic designer, we created this beautiful packaging. And then we send them off to get shipped at the warehouse, and the colors are wrong.
No.
Yeah, the colors were wrong. And they're not that bad. I had like a bunch of my friends and my partner look at it. I'm just like, look at them. What do you think? And they're like, oh, yeah, it looks amazing. And I was like, my graphic designer, we're sitting here, we're like,
It's
no.
not.
Yeah. So Celeste and Harmony were supposed to be distinguishable. So they're both like the deep red, but you're supposed to see a distinction between the background red. And when I saw the packaging, I'm like, this is like, you can see it, but they're too close. And then the background color of Harmony was just like more salmony than it was just.
What did you do? Did you redo, or are you selling with what you have?
Selling with what I have.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the response of the supplier who did packaging, they were like, you can either return it or you can keep it. And I'm like, but you're not gonna fix the mistake? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay. I invested like so much
Wow.
money, and I was like, I have so much inventory, and we're launching soon. So this is like
Yeah, you're in it.
launch was like there, and I was like, I don't have time to ship it back, have them reship it, like spend 2 more weeks like to create and then ship it to me when we're literally launching, and this needs to go to the supplier, like the supplier to fill them.
Right.
And, I put my perfectionist hat aside, and I said, okay, they look pretty. Nobody knows because it's just me, my graphic designer, that know the actual color palette. They look nice.
Yes.
And we're just going to go with it. But that moment, I was quite literally, because I'm a pacer, when I'm like overthinking and nervous, so I'm just like pacing in the kitchen around like the island. And like my boyfriend just looked at me, he's like, are we okay? I'm like, no, we're not okay. And he's like, they're fine. He's like, Chelsea, they're fine. They look good. It's going to be okay. And I think that moment of like, I'm just saying, you know what? I invested so much money. It's not perfect, but it's still good. And we're just going to move forward, and we're going to go through with it. And if people notice or people make comments, then we freak out. But we're just going to, go on as like it was the intended plan. And this is the goal. We wanted them to look like this. And then we'll see what the feedback is. But luckily, no one has said anything about the color mismatch and how close those two are. Because that's my biggest worry. I was like, oh, what if you like go to grab one and you actually grab the other?
I see.
And I was like, it's fine, but we move on.
Well, yeah, and you know what? So again, you're just a fascinating and wise founder, because these distractions and these, what we could consider a setback, happen for all of us. But I believe how we lead through that is really the dictator of success.
Yeah.
Because it would have been easy to say, stop the launch, this isn't perfect.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are perfectionists, and we're also control freaks.
Yeah.
It's just part of our nature and why we're successful in entrepreneurship. I think there's a part, it's like almost like the cost of entry.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate how, disappointment is real. We can feel disappointed in things. I've felt disappointed in things, but how we lead through that can really dictate our success or failure. And so you just chose to, walk through that, and maybe it's not perfect, but there's also some fun things ahead, like even in the future when you do another drop where you could potentially update and get it to where you want it to be. But you're right. Did anybody notice?
Nobody
noticed.
Nobody noticed.
You did.
Yeah.
Because you care and it matters to you. But isn't that interesting how we think? I know for me, sometimes when I do things, it just feels really loud. Like, oh my gosh, are people going to notice this? And nobody sees it. But as a detail-oriented person and a creative, it's loud for me.
Oh yeah. It's hard.
Yeah.
Like I know I've met other founders who aren't like creative and have other businesses, and they're just like, oh yeah, it's fine. And I'm like, I wish I could have that. Oh yeah, it's fine. But when you spend like this was months of designing and picking and making sure that every detail mattered because there's a story behind it and you wanted to match the story. It was hard to say it's fine.
Yeah.
It was because the reality is no one knows the the background work of a founder.
Right.
They're just seeing a product, right?
Yes.
They're just seeing it on the shelf and they're like, "Oh, that looks pretty. Yeah, I'm gonna grab it." Like no one thinks, like, unless it's like truly hideous, no one thinks second about the colors being similar, the
Right.
fonts being like slightly changed. They don't see that,
Mm.
and it's something that I've learned as being a founder is the reality is they're not gonna care.
Yeah. What else has been sort of surprisingly challenging for you?
Yeah, I think going through this, I would say challenging in a sense of making a voice for something very,
Mm.
I would say niche, right?
Mhm.
And kind of making, like, how can we as our body be distinguished from other brands? And I think just the meaning of the product ourselves is distinguishable from other brands. But I think learning how to navigate the wellness space is one where I think has been a lot of learning curves. There's some areas because we're founded here in Ontario, so
Mhm.
there's certain areas that are more locked in
Mhm.
when it comes to the wellness communities, and others that are more wide open. So, we're founded in Ottawa, so Ottawa is very locked in. Like you need to know the people within the wellness industry to get a foot into it.
Mm.
Whereas in Toronto, more people, bigger people, it's easier and more fluid to kind of get your way into the door.
Okay.
So that's one thing that I've been noticing about the wellness industry. It's you really have to either know those who are already in the game or be able to adjust and pivot and just put a strong foot of, okay, this is my brand. Yes, right now, not a lot of people care
Mm.
about advocating for hormonal health. I think it's something that we've kind of just, have existed as women and just said, yeah, this is just a part of being a woman. So when you're having a product based about hormonal health, they're like, oh, okay.
Mm.
Like, I don't really see them that much of a demand, but the demand's there because
Yes.
we're just unfortunately groomed to suffer and accept the realities of our hormonal cycle.
Right.
So changing the narrative is also a big thing of, you know, we're s- I we're pushing a narrative of saying, okay, this is something to take seriously, even if the market's not there, even if it's not something that people are actively going to
Mm.
shops and areas to look for. I'm like, this is something that women go through on a day-to-day basis. This is something that matters, and we should make sure it matters, and we should make sure that people are able to find access and find that
Mm.
support and rather than just being like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I'm hearing from you even, it's not just getting these products into physical stores and in
mm,
front of people, but it's also breaking a paradigm. It's
yeah,
also really bringing this to the surface and showing the demand. So that's really interesting because I almost think in my mind, if you knew everything you knew today, would you still have started?
absolutely.
Ah, I love it.
Like it's because I always tell people, when they think about our brand, they're like, oh yeah, you're a tea company. I was like, no. I was like, we are a women's wellness, brand. We're here really promoting hormonal health because even if I went through what I went through and I decided not to turn our body into a business and
Mhm.
I created the formulation for Celeste just for my own personal health, I still would have done it because that's something that I, as a woman, wanted. I
Mhm.
wanted a clean solution for my hormonal health. I had this passion to better understand my body, better understand how it goes through, how it moves.
Mhm.
So that drive still would have been there, even if I didn't turn it into a business. And at some point, I think someone would have said, Chelsea, you're turn this into a business,
Right,
please.
right.
So with everything I do know, I still would have done it.
Excellent. Share with me the best part so far? Like, what has it been the comments in your DMs from the customers? Has it been seeing this come to fruition, like actually touching the packages for the first time? Like, I'm thinking if I were to be in your shoes, all these like moments that I imagine were huge for you, but what
Mhm.
has been the most beautiful celebratory point so far in your career?
Yeah, I feel like we've had a lot of moments, but the one that I'm most proud of was we were in a product showcasing. So our product was there just to be displayed for, media and influencers and just like random people that I have no connection to.
Mm.
And, I got the feedback from that event and everyone was like, oh my goodness, so many women were so excited about having this product, having something that focuses on the hormonal cycle. And then from just having our brand, they started having conversations about, hormonal health and how we should talk about this more. And that's something that truly makes me so proud, because I truly believe that we as women should be talking more about our hormonal health. We should be normalizing the experiences we go through. We should be normalizing the conversations around it. And, to see people automatically start getting into these conversations and having these discussions about hormonal health and women's health because our product triggered it, I think was the most proud I've ever felt for like the brand, because I'm like, okay, we're doing something,
Yeah.
and the mission's there, and we're actually reaching the woman that we want to, because we need to be talking more about our hormonal health. We need to be talking more about women's health in general, and start normalizing the experiences that we go through.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. And that must have felt like almost soul nourishing for you, because you're right. Yes, you have a physical product, which is tea,
Hmm.
but your mission is much broader.
Hmm.
It's this bigger conversation. It's awareness. It's the bringing it mainstream, like just women talking about this openly, and not just women. I feel like even men,
Yeah.
involving men and everybody being comfortable around this
Hmm.
thing that happens to every woman on the
Yeah.
face of the earth. Like there's not an exception to that rule. I mean, yeah, no, we all, I mean, I can't think of an exception to that rule unless I'm being naive. We all have hormones.
Hmm.
And I find it I remember someone telling me that men, their hormonal changes are exactly the same in a 24-hour
Yep.
period. So they're every 24 hours, they go through the same hormonal shifts. We don't have one day like the other.
Yep.
And I remember at first, when I first heard that, I remember thinking, maybe it is true that, we're emotional, and it is difficult, because sometimes it's even difficult to be in our bodies.
Hmm.
And then I remember kind of reframing it in my mind and thinking, I'm actually fascinated, because I wonder if, and it was like this curiosity again that came out with me, I wonder if that's why I'm so creative. I
Hmm.
wonder if that's why I feel so intuitive when I'm in my bleed. I
Hmm.
wonder if that's why I sometimes just want to curl up and be with a weighted blanket and watch some Netflix and just be quiet and still, because my body needs that as much as my hormones are asking me to do that.
Hmm.
And I remember just really starting to feel celebratory around my hormones and around how unique and special each day holds for
Yeah.
me. And it's almost like you get to play with that. Like, who am
Yeah.
I today and how am I feeling today? And rather than it being something where we concentrate on the symptoms, it's almost like, how can I pull through a superpower today that's connected to that hormone or
Hmm.
where I am in my hormone cycle?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's also part of that is being more in tune with your body. Is something
Yes.
that I've loved doing, especially on a personal level. I've just started saying, you know what? Today I'm not feeling the greatest, and that is okay,
Yeah.
because my body is signaling to me that I need to rest and slow down. And there are other days where I'm like, you can barely get over, like you can barely reach me because I'm so locked in. But I think as a part of that, once you start understanding, getting more involved within your hormonal cycle, you get more empowered.
Yes,
It's
you
like,
do.
okay, like
Yeah.
I feel confident within my body, but also I'm going to give my body grace.
Mhm.
And I think that's also another thing, that I wish women would do is it's okay to not be at your best. We have our hormone cycles like ups and downs all the time. So when there are days where we're not functioning our best, where we're couch potatoes, where we're just laying down and just brain rotting, that is okay.
Yeah.
We can't always be, go, 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 because we're going to burn out.
Mhm.
So it's giving yourself grace and finding empowerment within your body to understand,
Mhm.
the shifts and the phases you go
Mhm.
into, and just allow your body to do what it does
Yeah.
and go through those phases.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember even in my business, I was working with someone who was very tapped in. And, I was hearing at the time, this is a few years ago, how many women were canceling calls because they started their period. And I was like, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me as a business owner. Like, I can't cancel my calls because I'm on my period. So I remember talking with her, and she said, actually, Jen, you don't need to necessarily be high vibe with your clients on the calls, but what you can be is really tapped in, really intuitive, and really creative. And I remember feeling very empowered in that moment, being like, yes, it doesn't always have to be up here.
Mhm.
This feeling can provide superpowers. This feeling can bring something really special to the table that when I'm up here in my Beyonce mode doesn't.
Mhm.
And that was very eye opening for me. And I also really work to empower the women I serve and lead to say, we don't have to stop
Yeah.
for a week every single month. That's a time to write and create and come up with your next project
Mhm.
or next idea. There's so many amazing things that we can do to support ourselves and also stay functioning in our
Yeah.
business,
Yeah.
right? So, where are you going with Our Body? What is the future?
Yeah, the future is, I always joke around and I say, is absolutely crazy and insane. Because I'm that founder that I run off of delusion. So I
Okay.
have like big dreams. And when I look at Our Body, I, want this brand to be known for its empowerment within the female hormonal space. So next year is we're essentially kicking off the next phase of Our Body and looking into different products. So aside from tea, so we're continue to have tea, but also looking at other products to still support the female hormonal cycle, but then also realizing and understanding that, a lot of women don't have the space to
Mhm.
have these conversations
Mhm.
about their hormones and their experiences, and instead of just sitting around waiting for someone else or
Yeah,
society or just women to naturally
right.
get more public about talking about their experiences, we're kicking off a series where we're supporting women and creating an environment where women can talk about their experiences. They can find other women that go through similar life experiences as them, because that's also another thing. Sometimes we go through life thinking it's just us and we're the only ones who experience this one phase or one experience. And the realities are there's so many other women out there that can relate, if not are going through the exact same things
Mhm.
outside of just the hormonal cycle. So I think creating this environment where women are empowered, they're in tune with their bodies, and they get this understanding of, okay, not only am I this strong, powerful woman, but I can support myself in a way where, others can who often neglect and don't see. So the goal for Our Body is to tap in
Mm.
to, I would say, a little bit of the healthcare space and, create a list of, those who are doctors, those who are, female practitioners who advocate and actually take the experiences of, female health seriously, and provide that information for women who are like, oh, I have this one doctor, doesn't take me seriously, but I'm hunting for a female doctor. I need someone who actually takes me seriously. Okay, well, we have a list for you.
Oh, that's
We've done
amazing.
the work for you.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So you're just almost, well, you're not just almost, you would be this resource for women where they can really find answers,
Hmm.
support, feel seen, feel heard,
Yeah.
empowered. And you have not just the products, and again, not just the products, you've got products.
Yeah.
Like that's the most amazing thing. I think that in itself is just something that I'm really taking away from our conversation is just the fact that you had an idea and you went for it. And I just treasure women like you so much because in my experience and working as an entrepreneur for so long, and specifically with women, I think it's one of my biggest heartbreaks is how
Hmm.
many women give up on themselves too quickly.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're doing this and then seeing this big vision of where it can go and what you can create and this space for women is really, really exciting. And I
Yeah.
congratulate you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a big
Yeah,
deal.
it is a big task to take on because, yeah, I think to know, like, my goal and, for Our Body is I want to get to a point where I can confidently say that, the women will stop having the experiences that I had.
Mm.
That the women, my sisters and, the younger generations are not going to go to the doctor's office and be
Right.
like, I have to either over exaggerate, I have to prepare essentially my argument to
Yeah.
go in front of this
Right.
doctor, and to, see that shift where, less and less women are having to fight just to be heard. Not
Mm.
even to be like have actual healthcare procedures done, just to be heard. I
Right.
think is something that I'm like, okay, we need to start there.
Hmm.
Women need to be heard. How can we make women's voices be heard? How can we start taking the experiences that women go through more seriously? And it really just starts from normalizing it. So the goal is to make a lot of changes, but it's something that I think a lot of us as women, truly appreciate and truly, would be like, yeah, we want that. We
Right.
want to be seen. We want to
Right.
be heard.
Yeah.
And to, kind of start that change within the society we live in.
Yeah. And stop waiting for someone to do it for us. And
Yeah.
we actively become involved. Yeah, I love this. So, where can the audience listening in find your products, find you, learn more, be a part of the community that you're building?
Yeah. So right now we have a website. So products, you can find our products over there. And then we're kicking off starting next year with some retail placements. So we have some things coming in for next year where, women all across Canada can, go and find our products in store.
Nice.
And then we have some other fun things. So I say socials are probably the best place to kind of follow for more sneak peeks and anticipations for what we're having or planning to have for next year.
Excellent. Well, we'll link all of that in the show notes,
Yeah.
of course, for everybody to go and check out. And I just want to say thank you again. Thank you again for going out on the skinny branch and doing something that a lot of people think about, but not necessarily action. And I really look forward to seeing all of this. You called it delusional. I'm like, I don't think that's delusional. I think that's just really great, big vision.
Yeah.
And I can tell you're the woman behind that. So I applaud you and I look forward to watching the success.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me in this lovely conversation.
It was good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.